everyone, my name is Amanda and I'm the Fun Size Reader, and being that it's almost the end of the year, I wanted to start getting my top books out to you guys from everything that I read this year. So I read almost 60 books, which was more than my goal from my Goodreads goal. This video is going to be my top 5 fantasy books that I read this year. It's going to be a mix of any fantasy that I read, so both YA and adult fantasy. Most of them were adult romance fantasy. Well, I guess they're pretty much all romance fantasies. I like romance. What can I say? Okay, so let's start with number 5. Picking number 5 was actually really hard. I feel like this was the hardest one for me to pick. Like, which book didn't make the list? I read a lot of really good fantasy books, but picking which ones were the best was really hard because I feel like books are good for different reasons. And so this number 5 spot was really hard. I ended up going with The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout. And I went with this mainly on like the feel and like remembering what happened in the book as compared to others. Spoiler here, spoiler for the video, not spoiler for like the book. I did not put A Court of Silver Flames on this top 5 list. And I know that's very contrary to like what everybody voted on the Goodreads best of book poll, because A Court of Silver Flames won. I did not think that that book deserved to be the number 1 fantasy of the year. I just didn't. I did not think that the writing was up to par of her other books. I didn't think the storyline was up to par of her other books. I just didn't think it was the best. And so like as putting the adult fantasy in this, it was hard for me to say that this one was like one of the best also, because there was a large chunk of it that I didn't love, that I was a little bit bored in, like in the middle. But if I look at the length of this book and the amount of book that I actually liked a lot in this, it was still a lot more that I liked as compared to some of the other like shorter YA fantasy books or other YA fantasy books that I thought, hey, maybe the first one I liked a lot better than the second one. The second one was still great. Like Namesake. I really loved Fable a lot more than I loved Namesake, but Namesake was still really good. The Cruelest Mercy. I really liked the book, but I liked The Kinder Poison a lot better. So it made this number 5 spot really hard. So even though I didn't love like the middle of this book, there was still a lot of it that I did love. So that's why The Crown of Gilded Bones came in at number 5. For number 4, so this is another second in a series, but the way that she wrote them, you actually can read either of the first 2 books interchangeably. Like it doesn't matter which one you read first. So that is Dark Skies by Danielle Jensen. And the reason why I picked this as my number 4 choice was because it's kind of a fantasy book that has everything. Like it has the political fighting, it has the backstabbing, it has like the strategy, it has the fantasy world, it has the little bit of romance, it has the fighting, the magic. Like it kind of has just everything in fantasy. And it was enjoyable to read. It was fast to read. There wasn't so much world building that you like couldn't wrap your mind around it. And it's a series that I really love and an author that I really love. And I still have book 3 to read, Gilded Serpent, and book 4 is coming next year. So I need to get on that. But I did think that Dark Skies, because it was just like so complete and had so many elements, definitely deserved to be on my top 5. Coming in at number 3. So this one I read recently. It came out towards the end of the year. It was a vampire, but lots of vampires on my list this year, okay? It was a book that has the vampire element, it has the romance element, it has world building, but it also was just like a fast bust through it kind of read, and I think that's what made me really love it so much. I couldn't look at my whole list and not have this book on it, just based on a feeling, like just based on how I felt when I read it, how I liked it. And that is King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. I don't know if you've seen my video review on this. Go check it out. I'll put the link up there for you. But my biggest complaint on this one was that I just didn't get too like overly emotional about the romance, and I wanted that. So I'm hoping I'll get that in book 2. But other than that, I really loved it. I really, really loved it. I loved the characters. I loved the storyline. I loved that I didn't really, I predicted some things, but not all the things. So yeah, I can't wait for book 2. So book 2 and book 1 slots were really hard because I rated both of these books solid 5 stars, like solid. And I was having a hard time determining which one should go where. And the deciding factor for me was when I really, really didn't want the world to end in the one that I put first, that I ranked number 1. I literally had such a book hangover. I had a book hangover after the book I rated number 2 also, but it just wasn't as deep, like it wasn't as bad as book 1. So book 2, the book that I rated second on my top 5 fantasy of 2021, is Defy the Night by Brigid Kemmerer. I really loved this book, you guys. I really, really loved this book. It's about a pandemic, which makes it really hard to read right now, but I didn't feel like it was so hard to read because there are some books that are coming out that are actually about the pandemic, and I'm just like, nope, can't do it. But this, because it was a fantasy world, because it wasn't like what we were living now, it was imaginative, but you could relate to it. I thought it was so good. I said in my other videos, I love this one so much better than the Vows of Bold and Deadly series. And I loved it. It was like a Robin Hood, Zorro retelling because I love retellings. I think they're so fun. Defy the Night. Definitely read it. Definitely read it. It was so good. And I know there's more coming, and I'm excited for that too. That leaves my number 1 fantasy book of 2021. Oh my God. Ugh. Number 1 fantasy book of 2021. So this was an easy choice for me. There was going to be no other book that was number 1. Well, I mean, kind of. Defy the Night came close. But just based on the sheer fact that I did not want this book to end, and I'm like devastated that I have to wait so long for the next one because JLA like pumps them out. She gets them out so fast for the content that she writes. And yeah, you know, sometimes I feel like they could be a little bit edited, but this one I didn't have that feeling. Like I loved the length, I loved the content, I loved the characters, I loved the, you know, romance, I loved everything. I did. I loved it. It was just the best. So Niktos, he took the cake over all of the others. So A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout is my number 1 fantasy book of 2021. So if you have not read this yet, please order it. You do not need to have read From Blood and Ash to read this book. Like you can read this first. There are some things that will make a little bit more sense or that you connect a little. The place is different kind of, yeah, it's pretty different. The characters are different. You get introduced to these characters in the other series, but it's very much at the end of the books that are available right now. So this is just like, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I can't wait for the second one. I'm so excited. Check it out. From Shadow in the Ember. Go get it now. I do have to leave a little bit of a disclaimer with my rankings in this video. Like I rank a lot of the books that I feel based on emotion, based on how I feel reading the book, based on like how much out of my own world that the book takes me. I don't have a set like criteria or checklist or anything that I do that makes me say this book is better than this one. It's really hard. It's really hard for me to rank these. But I do my best, and I do what I feel is best based on what I've read. But also, disclaimer, I judge fantasy books really, really hard because I've read so much fantasy, and I've read fantasy for so many years that, like, yeah, not as hard as some people judge them though. Some people are really, really harsh. I don't judge them that harshly, but like I expect a lot out of a fantasy book, and it really has to get me, and it really has to world build for me, and it really has to like take me there. Otherwise I'm kind of bored. And there were some that I read this year that were a little on the boring side. The majority were good, but I have a hard time saying that they were great, you know? So if I said it was great, that is kudos to you authors, because it takes a lot for that. If you'd like to support my channel, I will put the links for all of these books down below in the description. In the meantime, if you'd like to chat about books and other things, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at The Fun Size Reader. See you guys next time.